The World Bank has launched a new initiative known as StAR, the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, to help developing countries recover stolen assets. Can you first give me an indication of how much money we're talking about is involved in this?
Well, we have estimates which place the amount of stolen monies at upwards of $40 billion a year for developing countries, which is the equivalent to about 40% of official development assistance. So it's a sizable amount of money. Of course, the total amount of illegal funds that cross borders is many multiples of that, but we're talking about big sums.
So how will this StAR initiative help in terms of trying to recover some of those funds?
Well, there are a number of aspects to it. The first is that the best way to deal with the problem is to deter it, and I think we will be working with developing countries in developing their institutions to detect, deter, and recover where necessary. But the main aspect of this is that we will be working to provide technical assistance and advice to countries that come in to the World Bank or to the UNODC, with whom we will partner, seeking best practice advice on how to recover stolen funds. And we know that this is a laborious procedure because obviously people spend a lot of effort to hide the funds. So it requires a fair amount of knowledge of the judicial and financial systems in order to track and recover. And this is a very difficult task for a poor developing country, for example, to master. So we are basically going to, as part of the StAR initiative, provide one-stop shopping and try to help countries to make progress in this. We're also, as part of this, going to try to put pressure on financial centers to adopt best practices with respect to anti-money laundering and other procedures, such as knowing your customer, so that basically make it harder for people to loot and hide their resources.
How do you do that pressure, though? How do you put that pressure on?
Well, I think there's been a beginning in the G8 communique, which empowered the bank to begin working in this area, to recognize that this is an important aspect of dealing with international flows as well as international governability. I think the pressure needs to be put on all countries to pay more attention to the sources of funds that sometimes find their ways into their systems. And I think the bank, along with the UN Office on Drugs and Crime and others, will be highlighting which countries have ways to go. And also, as more and more cases are developed, such as the Nigeria case, which was brought to a successful conclusion a few years back, it'll be clearer both to developing countries that they have a chance at recovering these assets, and secondly, that in the OECD, you cannot turn a blind eye to stolen funds.
You mentioned the case of Nigeria. What sort of difference did it make to the country to get that money recovered?
Well, the sums involved were more than 500 million, so this is a sizable part of development expenditure. I think as a rule of thumb, we could say that for every $100 million that are recovered, you could finance 4 million children's immunization programs, you could finance 250,000 water connections, and you could finance 600,000 people getting antiretroviral treatment for a year. So that's just for 100 million. So multiply it by 5 in the case of Nigeria, and in many countries it may be multiples of that.
How do you ensure that the funds that are recovered are actually used for development purposes and not siphoned off for other means?
Well, I think that's one of the areas where the World Bank can make a really meaningful contribution, because we not only work in countries with respect to overall public expenditure management systems and controls, but when asked by countries, as we were in the case of Nigeria, we can pay special attention to how the funds are deployed and to make sure that they're used effectively for the programs that they were intended. So the notion is that you don't want the funds stolen twice, and so therefore that after a major effort is undertaken to recover stolen funds, you want to make sure that it is well spent.
Under the StAR initiative, it also calls for the ratification of all countries of the UN Convention Against Corruption. How important is it that countries ratify that agreement, that convention?
I think it's quite important. I think it's a signal that that people are serious about the anti-corruption convention. There are a lot of stages of signature and ratification. A number of OECD countries have signed but not ratified. Others have done both. So I think the UN is quite anxious, and I think they are having a conference on this in Bali in December to try to put additional pressure on countries to sign the convention. I think that's a good signal that they won't tolerate the use of their financial centers for illegal purposes.